Hello. You guys doing okay? Good. I am Chef Oya, and the trap is I have one child that I birthed, and she is right here. Are you taking a video? Yeah. Good job. I didn't even tell her to do that. I have one child that I birthed, but I call the trap my other baby because it really has taught me a lot, just like children teach you a lot when you're running. So oftentimes, almost all the time, the trap has a line around the building. We serve about 100 to 200, depending on the day. During our lunch service, we serve about 100, 200 people. And it's really like blown me away the amount of support that we have gotten, but it wasn't always like that. I grew up watching the Food Network and like going into the kitchen and making recipes that I learned or that I saw the chefs make on Food Network, and always saying, man, this is cool. I love making this food. I love, watching the shows on TV, but I've never seen anybody that looks like me on Food Network. Never seen a fat black woman on TV on the Food Network, and it just really puzzled me. But I grew up, I worked for, a couple small restaurants, a couple chain restaurants, kind of going through growing up my first couple of jobs. Worked for a small catering company, and I did some catering management, and I was a school lunch lady for a little while for that same company. And then I ended up I went to Indiana State University my first year out of college. I wanted to be a sportscaster. And so I was studying radio, television, and film. And I did really great the very first semester, and I had like a 3.8, 4.0 or something like that. And then the second semester I had a 0. So they sent me home. The story of why I had the 0 is not important today. But they sent me home, and so I went home, and my parents were just incredible. I had always been like a really good student, and my parents were always so proud of me and, just glad to see me doing what I'm doing. And my father had this thing where he would say, everybody talk about they had bad teenagers and stuff like that. Toya didn't lose, and my first name is Toya. Toya didn't lose her mind until she turned 21. That's what he would say. And that is the truth. Other than when I lost my mind when I came home with that 0. So I flunked out, came home, and I think that's when I was working at like Applebee's or something, and just kind of floating and just doing whatever. And I grew up, and my mother would tell you that I just cooked. I just cooked all the time, and eventually, if they were at home or if they were working, or whether or not my parents were at home or working, I was like always the one that was cooking, and I didn't mind it. And so this was one of those nights I had come home, and it probably must have been a pay week or something because there wasn't very much in the refrigerator, but we had some flour, we had eggs, and there was some canned tomatoes and some tomato paste in the cupboard, and I think there was some frozen ground beef or something, and I just had to figure out what to make. And my brothers were like, well, just make some spaghetti. I said, we can make spaghetti. So I went into the cupboard, and I was looking for spaghetti noodles in the box, and there were none. But we had flour, and we had eggs. So I made some noodles from scratch because of something that I had seen on the Food Network. And so I made these noodles from scratch, and my brother tasted them, and they're like, these are different, but this is good. They were amazed, and I was really kind of shocked at what I did, and I took some over next door to who I call my godmother. And I handed her a plate, and she looked at it, and she was like, where you get this from? And I said, I made it. And she said, you made that? And I said, okay. I said, please taste it. And she tasted it, and she was like, these are not box noodles. I said, no, they're fresh noodles. My mama probably going to kick my ass because the kitchen is crazy when she gets home. And she said, she looked at me and she knew, like, we were really close, and she knew that I had been having a very difficult time dealing with, depression and trying to figure out what I was doing, flunking out of school when I had always kind of really been a cool student, but then, like, realized that I wasn't that great of a student. But she looked at me and she was like, this is an amazing dish. You really showed, like, real skill here. And I know you're trying to figure out what you're trying to do, but I really need you to take your ass around the corner to enroll in culinary arts school at Ivy Tech. And you need to do that, like, as soon as possible. And so I enrolled in culinary arts school at Ivy Tech the next week. And because I'm not a great student, I still didn't finish. But I went through and I still had that experience, and I had a great experience, and I learned a whole lot and got into it with some of my teachers. I am teachable, but it just didn't work. So I ended up coming back home and figured something out. I'd always either worked retail or some type of food service, just back and forth trying to figure out exactly what I was going to do. I found myself working at for a small catering company, and I learned a whole lot there. And they are the same company that I also was like the school food, the lunch lady for. And then after that stint at that particular place, I started working at a car dealership. So I was like selling cars. And in between that, like, I always had this deep love of food and for like actually cooking for people. So I also, in between all of that time, taught myself how to make celebration cakes, and like taught myself how to work with fondant because I didn't make it that far in culinary school. Taught myself how to work with fondant and how to do all types of things. So I was really making these beautiful creations for my friends and for my family members. And eventually it got to the point to where people were asking me to make them for their friends and their family members. So I was having orders and doing all this stuff. I was having to take time off of work to even finish the orders that were coming in. And one day I was watching the Food Network, and there was a commercial that came on, and it said, we're looking for the next best chef. And I'm like, it's time. This was like in 2006. And I was like, Food Network ain't never seen nobody like me. They really need to, yes, I'm going. So I called a good friend of mine who lived in Detroit. I drove from Indianapolis to Detroit to pick her up. And I didn't think in my head how much sense it did not make to go to Detroit and then drive across Detroit to Chicago, because the audition was in Chicago. I should have just had her meet me. But anyway, drove to Detroit to pick her up. We then drove to Chicago. Went for the audition, and Food Network were like, nope, go home. So I went home. And, I don't know exactly what came of that or whatever, but I didn't get called back for the audition because I wasn't what they wanted at the time, and that's okay. Anyway, so I then is when I go to work for the car dealership and was having all these orders and all of that stuff. And one day the manager of the car dealership came in and he laid my whole department off. And everybody in the department were like, what? We were doing really well, so we thought. But everybody in the department were really distraught and upset and all this stuff. And I'm just like, can I go right now? Because I got some orders to fill. You giving me a severance package or what? How are we doing this? So I ended up leaving that, and there were about 6 months in between. I think that was in November of 2015, up until my birthday in April. Like, I really was able to like, I was grinding. I was hustling. I was doing cakes and cookies. I had garnered a couple of private chefing clients I was cooking for and doing meal prep for on a weekly basis. I was just like really working, struggling to a certain extent, but I was able to pay my bills. I had amazing support from my mother and my father at the time. Just like it was amazing. I was even able to take myself on a trip to Jamaica for all of my hard work, like 6 months after I got fired. So that was really one of those times in my life where I was like, I really can do like really whatever it is that I want. And I don't think I ever want to clock in for anybody again, like ever in my life, ever. So, around the spring, I was watching something on TV and I recalled a trip that I had made earlier, like in the first 2015. I had made to Brooklyn and went to this restaurant and they were doing some really good like low country style seafood boil trays. And or like they put them in bags and like shook them up and they were really delicious. And I said, oh, that's good. We don't have anything like that in Indianapolis. So my wheels got to turn and I was like, maybe I should, sell a couple of crab trays or whatever, and we'll see how that goes. But before that, I had remembered that there's also this same type of tray that they serve in Jacksonville, Florida, in Duval County, and they call it garlic crab trays. So it's several different kinds of crab, or however you want. Sometimes they do blue, sometimes they do Dungeness, sometimes they do snow. And then they make this deliciously rich garlic butter sauce that they like just slather all over the top of it. And every time I saw somebody like post a picture of it, I would just like, And so I was just like, we don't have anything like that here in Indianapolis. Let me figure it out. So I tried to come up with my own like butter sauce, and I did one and it was really delicious. And then I did the second time. The second time I attempted it, it came out like dynamite. And I was like, this is interesting. And then I have a really good friend. Her name is Chef Candace Boy Wiley, and she is what she calls the spice langer. She makes spice blends. And I asked her, I said, hey, we don't live in Maryland, and, Old Bay is cool and all, but I really want like my own type of seafood seasoning. Can you see if you can come up with a blend for me? And she came up with a blend, and I invited her over, and I made some shrimp, and I put the butter sauce and her blend on the seafood, and I looked at her, and we tasted it together, and we looked at each other, and we were like, girl, we are about to make some money, okay? So, we made a flyer, and I took some really good pictures of this beautiful looking seafood boiled tray, and we put it on our social media, had a blast. And the very first time that I sold crab trays off of my front porch, I probably sold about 30 of them. And I remember sitting in the living room after that night, and I was exhausted, honey, just oof. And I remember counting the money, and I was like, girl, did I just make enough money to pay my rent and pay all of my bills like in one night? Okay, this is wonderful. I'm going to do it again tomorrow. We'll see what happens. So we kept doing it like for the majority of the rest of the spring and into the summer. And then I remember having a conversation with my dad, and he was like, so what are you doing? And I was like, I'm just, just hustling, Daddy. I'm just grinding. I'm trapping. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, it's too many people coming to your house. You're right, Dad. You're right. So I had to start the search of looking for like a commercial kitchen. And I was looking for a commercial kitchen, and everything was so expensive. Like, I know I was making good money with the crab, but I'm not trying to give that to y'all to do what I'm already doing. What? And I didn't know a whole lot about business then, but I was trying. So I I just kept looking, and one day I was having a tough day, and I was making deliveries, because I was making deliveries up to, offices in Park 100 and up in Carmel and Fishers and stuff, and I was having a really tough day, and, some other stuff was going on, and so I went down the street from where I lived to a place that was called Jamaican Style Jerk, right on 34th and Keystone, and I was going to go get some oxtails because it was a Thursday, and Thursday was really the only day that he sold oxtails, Thursday and Saturday, but it was Thursday, and I knew they had oxtails, so I walk up, and I'm on a first name basis with him. I was like, hey, Kay, I need some oxtails, and then I see a sign on the door that said, hey, we're moving, and I was like, where are you moving to? And he said, up to, 71st and Michigan Road. And I was like, what you doing with this right here? And he was like, I don't know, I'm leaving. Can you give me the number to the guy that owns this, or the person that owns this? Like, what's going on? And he said, yeah, okay, just, hit me up later. But he had a line full of people and couldn't stop what he was doing to get me the information. And then when I came back, his line was gone, and so was his food. So he was gone too. So I couldn't get the information from him, so I looked up the information, and I found it, and I set up a meeting with him. I took him some of my food, and he tasted it, and he was like, you are the only one that brought me food, first of all, because he had interviewed 7 or 8 people that also wanted that same space. You're the only one that brought me food, first of all, and I can't eat seafood when my crew is in there not saying a word, and they are loud people, and they are eating and not saying a word, which means that it's good. And you look like you're working, because I went to this meeting, and I had on an apron. I shouldn't have walked out the house with it, but I was rushing. I had on an apron, and I just looked, chefy. And you're the only one that you look like you're actually working, and you're the only one doing something different. So come and get your keys tomorrow. And I was like, come and get my keys. I will. I'll be there tomorrow. And I went and picked up my keys. And my father passed away probably about 3 weeks before I actually had that conversation and picked up my keys. And that was a very, very tough time in dealing with that, because I've always been very, very close to my father. Grew up to be a father's girl. I'm a mama's girl now, but it was just really tough. So I had the keys to this restaurant. I'm dealing with grieving for my father, still trying to raise my who is now 7-year-old, and then also trying to figure out how I was going to, because I have a restaurant now. I need equipment. I need floors replaced. I need to paint. I need to signage. How is this going to happen? So I just kept doing what I had been doing and grinding and selling cookies and crabs and cakes until I came up with all of the money over the next 6 or 7 months to open. And I was able to come up with that. I did a little crowdsourcing. In all of this, I had also been able to really garner a great audience on my social media, and people just kind of flocked to me and were really enjoying my story and how I was building everything. And so the time came for me to have everything that I needed, and I called the health department. I was like, hey, can you come and check this out, because I'm ready to open, and we need to figure out if I'm able to do it or not, because I don't know what else you want me to do. And so they came and they gave me the approval to open from the health department, and it was such a crazy, amazing time, and I was so excited, and I'm crying, and I'm taking pictures of the health department sheet, and I'm posting it and stuff, and I'm just all cool and stuff. I was like, yes, so we can open tomorrow. And then I thought about it, and I was like, well, maybe not. And I checked my bank account, and I had $11.42 in my account. That was it. I had some cash, but it wasn't enough. But I had $11.42, I'll never forget that number, in my bank account. And I was like, so I've done all of this work, and I have come all of this way and got everything together, and I don't even have the capital, because I wasn't about to go to anybody's bank and get a loan. No. And didn't have any capital to to buy the food that I needed to sell. And so I had a conversation with a good friend of mine, and he was like, well, why don't you try to, ask people to just purchase their trays and then they come and pick them up. So I went to my social media and I put together some, packages for people to buy. And I put it out there, and about 70 people pre-purchased their food for me to get the capital in order to buy the food on my first day. And I've really been going ever since. And last year, almost a year ago to the day, on September the 20th, I turned on the Food Network and I saw myself on there. I was a part of a show. Called Bite Club. They came to Indianapolis and they picked 5, local chefs, and it was like a competition show. It's still on demand. You can find it if you want, but it's just kind of all came full circle for me, and just really grateful to be on this journey and having this experience. And I have so many other things that I have in the works and in the plans, and hopefully one day I'll be able to have a complex like one Mr. Chef Turquette over there. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for listening to me.